That was just for me for the
Are we
recording later.
are we
I think we are live.
are we
I
live?
don't know
Is
if it's
this
going
the
to work
internet?
this time, but that's okay. Hello and good
So
evening, good morning, good afternoon. I have no idea what time it is for you guys.
good day, good night,
Yeah,
good January, good potato.
good COVID. No, not good COVID. Bad COVID.
No,
Bad COVID.
no,
Bad
bad,
COVID.
bad, Mike.
We got a good show coming up for you today. We have studies identifying a social connection as the strongest protective factor for depression. Protective? I did read that right. I thought it said preventative, but we'll go with protective. Gulf War illness, chronic fatigue syndrome are both being recognized as distinct illnesses, which is fantastic. I'll get into that one definitely a bit later on. Tech can be used to address loneliness in young people, which would appear to be fantastic at this point, considering, all the stuff that's going on in the world right now. And as a little special treat, we have the psychology of the pumpkin spice latte. Love it. It's going to be great.
It's gonna be great.
Okay,
I'm really looking forward to it.
fantastic. Well, before the stream broke, we were talking about the strongest protective factors for depression, which
Right.
I'm just going to go through the talking points real quick so that we can catch everybody up. Apparently, the most prominent factors for helping to prevent or helping to cure depression is frequency of confiding in others and visits with non-toxic friends or family. The protective effects of social connection were present even for individuals who are at a higher risk of depression as a result of genetic vulnerability or early life trauma, which is fantastic. And other factors include time spent watching TV, being sedentary, like in terms of not particularly doing anything, and
hmm
daytime napping, and maybe even the use of the regular use of multivitamins, which that one's a bit iffy. I think it's more that
It's
if you don't feel good, you will take a multivitamin to help you try and feel better, rather than
yeah,
multivitamins cause depression. That's probably
yeah,
more
exactly.
less of a causality, more of a
Yeah.
commonality. But yeah, do you have any experiences with depression that you'd want to kind of talk about,
So
guys?
yeah, I think there's a lot of things there that are interesting. I think I agree with you on the vitamins that it's likely not that they cause it. Rather it's people who are people are constantly being presented multivitamins as a quick fix,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like, oh, if the first thing you do is start taking multivitamins, right? So it's likely that anybody who's in a place where they're looking to better themselves is probably taking multivitamins. I think that's why that comes up in the study.
yeah.
Um, Also, I thought it was interesting that so for being sedentary, totally get it. We're physical beings. We need to be
Hmm.
physical, or our bodies shut down because eh, our our bodies are kind of like muscles in general, where like if you don't use them, they will go away.
They definitely
They're
do.
only
Definitely got some
yeah. You need
experience
to
with that.
tell your body every day, look, you need to keep doing this stuff, and this is what I expect of you. Um, because it'll learn what you expect of it. So I think that definitely makes sense. Watching TV, I would expect that not only is it the being sedentary, but it's also likely that I mean, if you watch normal TV, especially, I personally think it's terribly toxic.
That is true.
Like the images that it force feeds you of who you should be and who you should want to be, at the very least, are just terrible.
Like 90 Day
And that's
Fiance, The Bachelor, Big Brother, Love Island, all that kind of stuff, all has negative effects that you wouldn't consider because you're not thinking about them while you watch.
yeah,
It's just
and it's not even
happening and
that.
it's eating away in the
Yeah,
subconscious that I should be
yeah,
better than this. Why aren't I doing
yeah,
this? Why aren't I
yeah,
doing that? Why
yeah,
can't I do this?
yeah,
But that's not healthy
yeah.
at all.
No. And it's worse than that even because that's sure that's the actual programming, the entertainment programming, but it's also in the advertising, right?
Oh
It's when
yeah.
you see, when you see these groups of really happy people doing really happy things, your brain automatically thinks, "Oh, I should be one of those people. I should want to be one of those people." And it doesn't think about what those people are doing. Maybe they're getting drunk on a boat. that's a really irresponsible activity, and that's a really, to me, I mean, this is really low level, and I'm not suggesting that we actually censor like getting drunk on a boat and shit. Like that's stupid, but it's a really easy way to point out the message that you're sending simply with visuals,
Yes. Yes.
right? Or we could say, oh, there's these really hot girls, and there's all these really hot guys on the boat. Well, what's hot? And like, where's the ones that look like normal people?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Advertising and
know?
TV for a long time has been very, very troubling, but
Hmm.
not in the way that you'd think. Like, violence on TV doesn't show necessarily to increase violence in real life. With the Bobo
Yeah.
doll experiment, I can't remember who it was, but there was a very prominent experiment that did show a link between instant aggression because of the learning that happened, but there wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
long term effect of that on the participants. So it's not
Cool.
necessarily that the showing violence on TV means it will cause violence in real life,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
good, but the negative mental effects of everything being almost perfect almost all of the time and your life isn't, you think there's
Mhm.
something wrong with you.
Yes,
And that just eats
exactly.
away and eats away and eats away and can
Yeah.
cause even
Yeah.
depression very, very easily.
Yeah. And you add to that the fact that like a lot of people I think are in these positions because they don't feel valued, because society doesn't value
Yeah,
them. Like society values how much money you make essentially, and that's about it.
pretty much. Yep.
Like there's I mean, I'm painting with a very broad brush when I say that, but like in general, that's, especially North American Western
Mhm.
values,
Even if you want
especially
to be
US
like a
values.
philanthropist, you have to have them
Hmm.
lots and lots of money behind you. Like Bill Gates, he may be putting microchips in people, but he also may be doing the world like an amazing service,
Yeah.
which is more
And,
likely,
we,
I
and only
think.
time will
But
tell.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, only time will tell for sure, and it's really hard to discern those things. But yeah, anyways, so those things are interesting to me. Those points. As for my own experience with depression, I have had some experience. I can absolutely see how having that network of supportive people in your life, because it really depends on the who the people are.
Oh yeah.
As I said, when the stream is muted.
Yeah, you know.
Um,
It happens.
Eh, it's all right. Personally, I don't have a great relationship with my family. I don't have that support network for them. If I went to them with my issues and genuinely like bared my soul and stuff, I wouldn't get support or help or nurturing from that at all. I would likely get their issues projected on
Right. Yeah.
me, even
And it
when,
would come back and it would be a discussion about who has the worst issues rather than a helpful discussion which would
yeah,
not
it
necessarily
would
solve
become.
something but support something.
Right, exactly. And so, and maybe that some of that's on me for being, distant. Anyways, I don't want to get into that too
Well,
much. But
of
anyways,
course.
when I found myself at my worst, at my lowest, um, I didn't have that friend network. I had also, over the past, 10 years of my life, drastically changed my life because it wasn't going how I wanted it to go. And so I wanted to better myself,
Fair enough.
but in doing that, I had to break a lot of the old relationships and stuff that I had. So I didn't have that friend network either. But what did bring me out of it and really helped was speaking with my wife, and actually having that frank and open, honest conversation with her, and having that confiding moment, really, where you're talking to somebody else and telling them, what your fears are, and what your personal values at that moment are, and
Mhm.
and also how you're personally valuing yourself, I think is really important as well. And it gives you that outside perspective that you need sometimes.
I think that's a very important conversation to have, and it doesn't have to be with a partner. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be with a parent. It could be school counselor. It could be
Y-
um,
yeah.
suicide hotline. It could be, well, I
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily recommend that one for just general chats, but like if you really need
No,
it, they
yeah.
are definitely there for you, which I think is
For
a
sure,
amazing
for sure.
service that they
And you
put themselves at risk of absorbing all of this negativity for whoever needs them, and I think that's an amazing, amazing thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, those people are absolutely to be commended. And one of the things that I've noticed in my life is that I'm often surprised by who I connect with.
Okay.
So if you're in that spot and you're thinking like, man, I don't have anybody that I connect with on that level. If you're in that spot, just try because you might find somebody, and if you don't, you're no worse off, right?
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion there if I can.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have the right to add any suggestion there. I don't have any training or
I
anything,
don't
but
see why not.
that's
As
something I've
long as
found in my
it's,
life.
yeah, as long as you have some kind of experience in that area, I don't see why not. I would agree with what you're saying as well, so yeah.
Well, cheers.
Ah,
Yeah, so
fine.
that's been my experience with it, and so seeing this study come out in favor of and indeed saying that the most protective thing you can do is have those open, honest conversations with your friends and with those close to you. Let's say,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I don't like
It
using
doesn't
the term
necessarily
friends
have
and
to be
family
friends and
because
family, yeah.
it narrows the field too
It
much,
could be
right?
your
So
favorite teacher. It could be your
mhm,
boss if you feel like you have that kind of
yeah,
connection. It could be a
yeah,
coworker, it could be a colleague. Just
yeah. You, I mean, for instance, we could take our relationship, Mike. I mean, 3 months ago, we didn't talk all. We've been friends for
yeah.
what, like a few
Yeah.
years. Play games once in a while, mostly
Hmm.
Overwatch, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
mostly. Not anymore, but mostly.
yeah, mostly it was.
Yeah.
But and we've since COVID, I would say actually, you and
Yeah.
I have bonded quite a bit more.
For sure.
Um, over Discord and things like that, which is interesting because that's going to segue real nice into some other topics later.
But we can skip right on to that one if you like. But
Yeah, sure. And so what's interesting to me though is that neither of us, I think, knew that we'd have the connection
no,
that we have.
for sure, definitely not.
I certainly didn't
Nope.
expect it, but the more I've talked to you, the more I've come
Just
to
kind
recognize
of
that there is.
meshes. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
exactly.
Works really well.
So you never know. So use Discord. If you have some Discord friends, use them
Oh yeah.
because that's the segue.
It can be used to address loneliness in young people, which is fantastic. So this does come with a few caveats, so I'm just going to read you through a little bit that I've pulled out here. It says, first, the good news. It looks like Americans overall are not more lonely as a result of the pandemic, which is fantastic. Uh, 1,545, here's that number, Americans aged 19 to 98, over 3 time points between late January and late April, found that loneliness did not increase over that period, which is surprising because that was the exact point where every single person was as hostile as they could be to anybody else, especially here. It was, don't
Hmm.
talk to me, don't get near me, stay away, but
Hmm.
I won't wear a mask. It was
Hmm.
awful. Um, Even better, respondents reported feeling more support from others during that time, which
Hmm.
kind of makes sense. People are reaching out, people are looking for the social interaction that they've lost from their like tight-knit friend group they meet up with every day. So they're reaching out to maybe older friends, maybe older colleagues, maybe trying to do things while other people are busy. And that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, you have more time.
Hmm.
I certainly that's part of why I started sort of being a bit more social.
Fair enough.
For sure. Like I'm not naturally a social person.
Yeah, same.
Uh, but
Which is weird because I seem like I am.
well, so this is something to totally derail us.
Oh boy.
This is something else I've come across a lot in my life, and I've done a lot of I've worked with people a lot, both
Yeah.
customer facing and just in places where there's a lot of people around. And one of the things I've noticed is that often the people who do best at like customer service and actually very social roles are very antisocial people because they're
That's fair.
charismatic and they can be very social,
That is true.
um, but it is taxing for them.
Hmm.
That's the issue.
For sure.
It's something they have to put effort into, but they do really well at it, right?
Yeah.
Um, Often.
Yeah. There are
Um,
definitely some like personality traits that don't suit well to social
mhm,
interactions, but on the whole, it's less of anti-socialism anti-socialism. Oh my god, no. It's less of not being or not wanting to socialize. It's more
Yeah.
that the act of being a role puts you in a
Hmm.
position where you can embody that role and
Yes.
then
Yes. Yeah.
roll with the set of rules socially
Yes.
that you are expected to
Hundred
follow.
percent.
So it
100%.
sets you up as a help desk, or it sets you up as a
Yeah.
concierge
Yeah.
service, or yeah.
I have this sphere of influence. I have this
Hmm.
wheelhouse, that's funny that you say that because I only realized that I over the last year and a half, I had sort of that thought at some point in that time where it was like, it's because we know in these conversations, I have this job, you have this job, like this is where we're meant to meet, and I know
And
that.
it goes kind
And
of like this, and every
yeah,
interaction is similar enough that they're not going to catch you by
yes,
surprise, and it's
yes.
very
Whereas
nice.
if you're an antisocial person or an introvert, like let's use the word term introvert, I would say maybe is better.
Yep, yeah, for
Um,
sure.
if you're an introverted person like I am, a social interaction that doesn't have that really concrete "I am this, you are that" in this conversation is very difficult
Yes.
because first I have to establish that.
Hmm.
First, we have to establish who are you and who am I, and that for me can be very difficult,
Yes, yes.
especially.
It's almost social pressure where
Yeah,
are
fair.
you the Japanese have a very hierarchical set of phrases that you use for
Hmm.
um a kohai is above you, senpai
Okay.
no, is it senpai? No, senpai is above you, kohai is
Hmm.
below you, and they learn from you. So
Hmm.
immediately in Japanese society, you are set at a bar, and you can raise
Yes.
your bar for sure, but that's usually with experience and with time.
Hmm.
But in the
Hmm.
Western society, we don't have that. You could be
Hmm.
talking in your local supermarket to a billionaire.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't be, but you might be. You might just happen
Yeah.
across them, and they wouldn't have any more social standing than you do.
Hmm.
But they'd
Hmm.
feel
That's
like
yeah.
they are owed a lot more socially than you are.
I I wonder how new that is. I wonder if that's like my thought is that it's probably a newer thing, like the last 200 years or so.
Fair?
Uh, Whereas it was much less likely to happen previous to that, maybe like in small population areas.
Hmm.
Uh, maybe there was a nation that did it that had a few 100,000 people at most
Yeah.
or something like that. I'd be interested to see more about that, but we're really getting off topic here, and I'm so
Yeah, we are a
sorry.
little bit. But okay, so unfortunately, it appears that young people didn't fare as well for loneliness. The Center for Disease Control, which is in America, showed that 75% of young adults reported they had at least one adverse mental or behavioral health symptom during COVID 19. And young people are reporting being lonelier than ever, which is
Hmm.
kind of scary to me because we are the ones with technology. I
Yeah.
say we, I guess I'm not that young anymore. But
This one really surprises me.
yeah, because
Really
it's
surprises.
like the 60 to 20 age group has kind of almost bonded together over this pandemic and gone, not obviously not those ages, but the 60-year-olds have reached out to other 60-year-olds kind of thing. But the
Mhm.
younger
Mhm.
generation, like the Generation Z, I believe they're called, um,
Okay.
aren't socially, maybe they aren't socially strong enough to really reach outside their friend groups yet,
Hmm.
which could be what's causing this.
Mhm. I was wondering if it was something socio-cultural again,
Oh, it definitely could
where
be.
because that age group, the younger age group is probably consuming more media,
Yep.
but even if they aren't, the media that they do consume will likely be essentially telling them that they should be out and having fun with their friends and doing all this stuff because the media hasn't changed either. Like
Yeah.
they'd still be seeing ads from 2019, which are full of people
Hmm.
not social distancing and doing all of this. And so, does that have an impact on that loneliness?
I
Like,
can't say
what's
for
the
sure, but
cause? That's the
I would
yeah.
think for sure, but that's a study that would probably need to be done because
So this.
the research is still evolving, unfortunately. It's a
Mhm.
very life topic. It's difficult to pin down a reason for a lot of this stuff. So
It's very current too, right? Like,
yes.
so it's happening
Yeah,
now.
and it will
So
only
it's not
happen
like we
now.
have the benefit of,
That
yeah, we
is
don't have the
tough.
benefit of years of data or
Mhm.
anything, right?
Yep.
Um, so, but this at least identifies that that younger population is feeling lonelier,
Oh
which
yeah.
is really interesting.
And
Very, very
and
surprising.
upsetting. I would feel like I
It's,
wish there was something I could do, but I can only do so
mm,
much.
mm. Yeah, I don't know what the answer. Well, I mean, there's so 'cause I think there's more to this story. Is that correct?
Yes.
So there is sort of an answer, or there may be an answer. Is that correct?
In theory, yes, it is
Okay.
encourage teenagers or young adolescents to use technology to, just like the older generations are doing, to improve their social circles and connectedness.
Hmm.
But it's the thing like, where are they going to go? They can't use Facebook because it's taken over by old people. They can't use TikTok because it's kind of a
I'm sorry.
I mean it is.
I'm
It is.
sorry. Is that really why? I
Yes.
okay. I'm
You're old, I know.
Facebook. So Facebook, young people are not using Facebook, not because it's a terrible platform, not because it steals your
Well, a little bit of
information,
that.
not because of it, not because it's a heinous evil
It's
overlord,
because it's seriously
but
freaking
because the
uncool.
old people
Yep.
are
It's
using it
super
because it's
uncool.
the MySpace of this
Mm-hmm.
generation.
Yep.
That's fucking hilarious. Pardon my French.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry. I hope this is a 19 plus channel.
It
Oh my
is.
god,
It
I'm
is.
so sorry if it isn't.
Uh
Oh my.
but yeah,
That's
all
so
of the like social media that they're into is TikTok. They've got Instagram. Like these are the kind of younger things, and they're
yeah,
all
fair.
focused on being something. Oop, hit my mic there. On
Mm.
being something and not being a group.
Ah, yeah, 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 yeah.
They're all
They're all
focused on
individualized.
following.
Yeah, they're siloed.
Hmm.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
You are your brand or your identity
Hmm.
within that space, which is a siloed identity that can be followed. But yeah, you create
You
groups? You
can,
create
in terms of like,
organizations
sort
or
of. Oh, hey, Laura. Thanks for the follow. Yeah,
hey, thanks for the
you can
follow.
kind of do that, but it's more kind of riffing on something that somebody else has already done. So it's a reply
No, but
in
like
terms of, I make this video and you parody it, or I make this video and you copy it, or that kind of social, rather than actually discussing something like we are
mhm.
right now.
So there's no way to let's say you and me and all of our five other friends,
Yes.
so there are three other friends, so there's five of us
Yep.
total, uh want to sorry, just a second.
If we wanted to have a
Yeah, so
chat, it
say
would
we
be
want
very
to,
difficult. Yeah.
not a chat, but like let's say we wanted to, not even just a chat, but let's say we wanted to release videos under an umbrella title,
Gotcha.
under an umbrella, like say the Blue Boys.
Hmm.
But I don't know what the
We would
hell,
be able
right?
to do
But
that through branding, but
mm,
not necessarily through social interaction.
I'm thinking like, so what I'm thinking is like guilds and
Hmm.
organizations in games where they give you within that apparatus, they give you tools, social tools to connect to one another.
Yes.
And this doesn't happen on TikTok or Instagram
And
or any of
Twitter,
that.
and yeah,
Mm,
it's more collective focused. So this group of people likes this thing, they all talk about it, you get a general sense for it, but there's very little actual
mhm.
meaty discussion going on between the two people. I know there are people
Okay.
who will like the old colloquial term of sliding into the DMs, is usually used for, like, sexual means. But
Mm.
other than that, it's kind of it can be used for discussion between two people, but I feel like it's an underused platform for that kind of
Okay. So it doesn't. Yeah, that's interesting that it silos like that. Maybe that's a reason. That could definitely be a reason
as
why
socially
they feel more
connected.
lonely.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely could be.
Hmm.
Okay,
So the answer
oh,
is more video games,
yeah, I think it
more
is.
multiplayer video
And
games.
not on the phone because they're terrible. They just suck you dry for money. Money.
Yeah,
Okay, next one.
true.
Gulf War illness. Chronic fatigue syndrome, distinct illnesses, study suggests. So, I don't have much experience, or any, well, I don't have any experience with Gulf War illness, but I've done a little bit of research, and it's suggesting that Gulf War veterans have been getting a cluster of medically unexplained chronic symptoms, which include fatigue, headaches, joint pain, indigestion, insomnia, dizziness, respiratory disorders, and memory problems. So they're saying that these veterans are coming home and having these issues. Now, chronic fatigue syndrome is slightly different. It is usually characterized just by extreme fatigue, and it lasts for 6 months. Um, but it can't be explained by an underlying medical condition, and the fatigue worsens with physical or mental activity but doesn't improve with rest. And that bit there is fairly important.
Hmm. I would say that's probably the defining factor of fatigue, right? It doesn't improve with rest. It's constantly there, regardless of how
Kind
much
of,
of
yeah,
the
yeah,
antidote you get,
yeah,
I'm I'm tired, so usually I'd sleep, but sleeping doesn't work now.
yes,
So
yes.
what do we do?
Yep.
Yeah.
But they're saying
Yeah.
what they say is that their fMRIs can distinctly tell the difference between the two, which means that they can see chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, this has been a thing, like ME, CFS, have both been diagnosable but unidentifiable issues in the past.
Ah, interesting.
Now they are
Very
suggesting
cool.
that if you take these Gulf War veterans and you take a person who has chronic fatigue syndrome, you will be able to tell the
Hmm.
difference between the two. Because veterans with
Hmm.
the Gulf War, what GWI? I forgot what that was,
It
but
was agility. It was vigilance and awareness. I think was heightened in those people.
hmm
Uh, I think I have it here. Um,
they showed a decrease in brain
writing out
activity
actually.
in the pain processing region and in the
Mhm.
cerebellum, which is responsible for fine motor control, cognition, pain, and emotion. But on the other hand, CFS patients are showing increased activity in the parts of the cerebral cortex related to maintaining vigilance and attention. Now, in healthy, like they did controlled tests, so in the healthy subjects, these areas of the brain had no changes when
Yeah.
they were put into the MRI and tasked with a memory task after moderate exercise. Forgot that bit. But so that's very interesting. It shows that CFS patients are almost overworking themselves, which I could kind of
Mhm.
relate to. There's so much going on that it's fatiguing and causing almost shutdown,
Mhm.
which is that's a very good way of describing it.
I think it's interesting to me that it's the part of the brain that controls pain and emotion as well.
Hmm
And I
That's for
think,
the Gulf War
yeah,
condition. Gulf
exactly.
War illness, that's
Well,
the
no,
one.
I think it's both, right? So did it not say that both veterans with GWI showed decrease in brain activity in the periaqueductal gray?
Yes, but the CFS patients showed increased activity.
Activity. Okay, increased activity.
So CFS is overreacting to every single stimulus that is being presented to them.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, which is it does make
Yeah.
a lot more sense to me now that
Yeah.
looking
So the difference.
from having
Yeah.
CFS and looking back at it for the 4 years I had it,
Hmm.
that does make a lot of
Hmm.
sense. That it's
Yeah.
not necessarily overstimulating, but it's that the brain has been going at 50 billion miles an hour for the past 20 years of your life, and it just
Hmm.
collapses in on itself almost,
Hmm.
which is
I just can't
yeah,
anymore.
exactly,
Just like I just
and
can't.
it just
Yeah.
shuts
And
down.
I would say it's interesting because I think the GWI, right?
Yep,
So the Gulf War
illness. Yep.
veterans. It would it wouldn't surprise me if down the road we find out that this is exactly the same shutting down, but this is a forced shutting down due to trauma,
Yes.
mental trauma. Like, so when you're in uh, the question I've asked in my own comments here, the notes I wrote for myself is this us seeing for the first time, thanks to MRI, physical evidence of shell shock, or at least of how the brain compartmentalizes itself after insanely high emotions experienced on the battlefield? So, these soldiers who are in these crazy situations, the brain's trying to sort this stuff out and find a way to deal with it. And it's almost like it's finding a way to dampen the pain in the emotion centers,
Yes.
right? To say no, you're just not going to pay attention to that for now. But then once they get out of the situation where they also have all this adrenaline, because there's got to be tons of that going on.
Hmm.
Once that adrenaline isn't there to also keep everything else up, do they now only feel the bottom level? Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
Definitely could be.
and and
It's like
and
once you eat spicy food, if you're into spicy
mhm,
food and you consume a lot of it, you will build up a tolerance to that, and then that spicy
yeah,
food will no longer be spicy, and you'll have to reach for the next level and the next level.
yeah,
And it's a similar thing to drug addiction, where the same
mhm,
thing kind of happens. You need higher and
mhm,
higher levels to maintain whatever it is that you're looking for from that substance.
yeah,
And if
mm,
if it's taken away, then you hit rock bottom. And
yeah, yeah.
I'm wondering why just being in a war, like I understand that that's severe physical mental trauma basically, but 20 years down the line, that's a long time to for the brain to recover. So there definitely needs to be
If
more
you're
research into this kind of stuff because this is only one subsect of veterans.
how so? Oh yeah, and this is Gulf War,
Yeah,
so they would have been 20 years. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to find out how young these people all were when they
that's
served.
true.
Like, if they were like 25 or less, maybe they rewire their brain and it stays that
Oh yeah, it
way.
definitely could. It definitely could. 100%.
I mean, because you could be like 19 and be in these places,
And
right?
then
Serving in a war.
yeah, all these things we were talking about with the social interactions earlier, that you
Hmm.
get that in the military, you leave, you can't find it again. That's all gone. That's
That
causing issues and
genuinely, yeah. Like, so, not to interrupt you there,
no,
but
go ahead.
just this is a great connection to the first story because that was exactly my depression. So I was medically discharged from the Canadian Forces because I'm not medically fit to carry a rucksack, do all that
Fair
anymore.
enough.
I have degenerative discs
Oh,
in my back. So um, all in all, in retrospect, it was the best I could have wanted or expected, I suppose, from the whole experience, given the issues and stuff. So I'm happy about it. But that change, you come out of that, and especially, I was not expecting to stop that career. Like, that came out
okay.
of the blue. It was like, you know, uh,
You went to a
essentially
doctor
one day.
one day and it just was, nope, you can't work here anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd had pain and
Hmm.
stuff, but, like, it essentially started with, like, yeah, like, there was that time, there was a moment where you realize this isn't going to be my career for the rest of my life. But before that, that's what I was banking on. That's what was in my mind, was this is going to be the rest of my
Yeah.
life. This is what I'm going to retire with. And then, so when I found out about all that, and then when I got out, I had a real, like, what the fuck do I do? Like, what's my purpose? And on top of all that, you have this, like, it's a whole different world. Those social interactions, like, that's one of the reasons I didn't have that um support network, because
Mm.
all my buddies were still in.
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're all halfway, in different
Overseas.
places across Canada or
Yeah.
overseas, or I've still got a few buddies who are in, but it's hard to stay in contact with people who are in that world because it is so
And
different.
it's so busy as well, I'd assume.
Exactly, and oftentimes they can't talk about stuff they're doing, especially
Yeah.
with how the jobs that I was doing. A lot of it was stuff that was, anyways, doesn't matter. Um,
Hey, speaking about stuff that
so
doesn't matter, I
yeah,
had a targeted advert from the FBI asking if I'd like to
what?
work for them. Yeah, I know it's just an advert, but that's hilarious. I was
That's
like, what?
so yeah.
Uh,
I heard recently that the army is no longer allowed to recruit via Twitch
yes,
in the
that's a
US.
thing.
And I thought
Yeah.
that was shocking because I was like, what? They were recruiting via Twitch previously?
Yeah.
Like going into people's streams being like, yo, well, you want to go do this for real, brah?
Yeah, that's
How
very interesting. That is
terrifying
that is a
is that?
very 2020 issue to have, I think.
Hmm.
Oh man,
So funny. Anyways, so
so
I thought
weird.
that was interesting though that definitely, like, that you're right on the money there. That's a definite factor in this for sure, because they're not getting the same thing they used to get.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We have one topic left. Know what it is? It's fantastic. That's what it is. The psychology of the pumpkin spiced freaking latte. Okay. Forbes estimates that the pumpkin spice latte exclusively captures over $100 million in revenue each year during the fall. Now, I will do an episode on this thing uh, on my psychology channel nearer the fall because I find this fascinating. But it appears to be tied with episodic memory. So what they've managed to do is they've managed to capture the taste of fall and only sell it during fall so that you associate it with fall, so you buy it during fall, and then you associate it more with the fall. So, yeah, here, let me.
So it's Pavlov's latte.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Uh,
Oh, Lord. Uh,
This is what do they call that? Manufactured, not
Scarcity.
obsolescence, scarcity, exactly.
Yep.
Manufactured scarcity.
Yeah, let
Yep.
me. Two variables play a vital role in building strong associations: exclusivity and repetition. Pumpkin spice lattes are consumed exclusively in the fall, and having one in April just feels wrong. Next, the tasting ritual is repeated annually, which works to amplify the strength of the association between taste and memory.
Mhm.
Now, I'd like to play a little game with this,
Okay.
and I haven't warned you, but is there anything else that you would associate so strongly with a season
Hmm.
or with like maybe a game or with
Oh,
anything that you could
that's
compare
actually
to
really
pumpkin
interesting.
spice latte?
100%.
Yes? What is
Well,
yours?
okay, I've got a lot of things, but the one that really jumps to mind, because it was one of the first times I noticed it in myself. I was just like, this is weird.
Okay.
So there was, if anybody plays Magic the Gathering, there's a new game called Magic the Gathering Arena, which is amazing. If you haven't tried it and you do like Magic the Gathering, go and check it out.
Not sponsored
Not sponsored,
yet.
but I've enjoyed it. Uh, However, there was a previous version, essentially, of Magic the Gathering Arena. It was Magic the Gathering Online, and way back when it first came out, I was really into it. And I was also at the same time really into an album by one of my favorite artists called "Amused to Death" is the album. Artist is Roger Waters,
Again,
and
not sponsored.
not sponsored, so I would often listen to those two things at the same time. And then when I started playing, and this was like 10 years ago, and I played that for like a year. And then when I started playing MTG Arena again, when it came out like last year, I immediately wanted to listen to that album.
You know what? I have an almost exactly the same story. It's pretty much exactly the same. I was a
Interesting.
2000, well, I was a 1993 emo kid, as they put it.
Okay.
My
I
Chemical
could see this.
Romance, Welcome to the Black Parade, and
Okay.
Unreal Tournament 2004.
Nice. Nice. I
Hmm.
would bet that most gamers have a similar thing.
Just on repeat the
Um,
whole time,
yeah,
whole time.
yeah,
And I went back
yeah.
into Unreal Tournament, the new one that came out with Unreal Engine 4, and I just
Mm.
every time I wanted to play an FPS game, it was, "Where's my song? Where is it?
Where's my
Where's the
songs?
soundtrack?"
Yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly.
And Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but that one not so much.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I mean it works,
Hmm.
like sense memory is definitely a thing.
Yeah,
And it just works. So, yeah. I'm sure there's tons of other things. I can't really think of them at the moment, but I'm sure there's lots of stuff in my life that's like that. Where I'll smell something and just be like, "Oh, I
yeah.
remember."
Mine is another one of mine is celebrating stuff and going to the Harvester. In the UK, we have a it's kind of a salad buffet similar to a Red Lobster.
Oh,
Um,
that's good.
and celebrating something, always go there.
I was imagining some weird, like, alien overlordish machine called the
You have been
Harvester,
playing
and like
far
a
too
little
many games,
village
sir.
a little village that every time they celebrated, they had to, like, sacrifice somebody to the harvester. Like, that's
Oh no.
every time we celebrate, we have to go to the harvester.
We must sacrifice the goat. Ah. Ah.
That's really funny. I think it's really interesting because you can get pumpkin, like, pie all
Yeah.
year round, but nobody does. So that's what I was gonna say is, I I think we see this as much less nefarious than we could see it
Ooh, I
because
don't.
it was already in our tradition to only really eat pumpkin around
That
fall.
is fair. Yes, these
That's a
companies have
very
kind
North
of
American
hooked
tradition.
into it rather than
Yeah,
inventing it.
gingerbread and Christmas.
There you go. Yep, that's a similar kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
But I can totally see in the future companies
Mhm.
starting to manipulate this in terms
Mhm.
of, oh, this is, they already are, but like this is
They
spring
already are.
flavors and this is summer flavors
Mhm.
and you have this at
Mhm.
this time of the year, and if you don't have it, your season isn't complete because
Mhm.
that sells and it shifts and it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, Apple does that already with their phone. Is it every year they come out with a new
Mm,
phone? Every 2
yeah,
years, something like that? Like, it's on a
regular
regulated
schedule.
schedule,
Yep.
and if you don't have the newest one, not only pardon me, sorry, not only are you not cool, but actively they will stop supporting you, stop developing for you, and your phone will actively start becoming less good because
Yes.
they've designed it to do so over time. Like anybody has an iPhone, you're already in this.
So I do know quite a bit about this story because I am in the tech space. What they were doing. So this was an active lawsuit that people have
Mhm.
filed against Apple for making their devices slower. What they were doing is they were actually overclocking the device during the first few months of um, its use,
Mm,
and it was harming the
right,
battery severely. So what it was doing was it was
right,
saying, "Oh, the battery's not good enough. Let's dial it back to keep that battery life." Which is why your
right,
phone was slowing
right.
down because they were trying
Yeah.
to balance it, but
Mm,
they were destroying the battery themselves by
yeah, yeah, yeah.
overclocking the
They're
phone and
burning
making
it
it
out.
faster than it should have been. So they have had
So
to
the
stop
question
that.
then becomes so then the question becomes, was this an oversight? Was this I don't tend to believe that there was like some shady nighttime meeting where they went, "How can we make our phones break in 2 years so that they have to buy more?" I don't think that happened. I think it's more a cultural thing. It's a business culture
Probably.
thing.
Probably.
Because often the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, but everybody has this
Very true.
trend towards profit and trend towards the same things, and so was it an oversight? Was it something there wasn't a check and balance
We
somewhere
will never
and
know.
this slipped through? Yeah, I don't know. I think I've seen enough of that sort of mentality in their uh, uh, design
Yes, that
to think it's not an accident.
yes, not an accident, I would agree with you. But I think that is it for time. Even with the little mess up we had at the start there, it has been almost an hour. So thank you very much for joining me, Mr.
Awesome.
Elwood Grimm. Feel free to
Not a
check him
problem.
out it's that way at the Twitch link down there. I am Mike the Psychology Guy on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very much. You are awesome. And yeah, I'll be releasing another video at some point this week. So hit the subscribe button. coming to hang out, and have a great week.
It was fun. See you later.
See ya.